maintain this frequency, 28 right, echo, echo, cleared for takeoff. 28 right, echo, cleared for takeoff, runway heading, we with you, limit 3660. Yeah, 204, 28 right, echo, echo, line up and wait. 28 right, echo, echo, line up and wait, now at 204. EC40 103, contact Chicago departure. Good morning. That was 553, uniform to left heading 250 on another turn. Left heading 250, guys, 553, power runway 3494 for now, stand November short of Echo Echo, and we'll work that out. You can expect the full length for departure. November short of Echo Echo, 3494. Skywest 553, uniform turn left heading 220 and contact Chicago departure. Left heading 220, contact departure, Skywest 553 uniform. United 204, fighting 270, 28 right, Echo Echo cleared for takeoff. Okay, 28 right and Echo Echo cleared for takeoff, heading 270, United 204.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Bryan Air podcast, and more specifically to our Connecting with Aviators series, where we dive into stories, challenges, and passions shaping the world of aviation. Today, we're excited to have a true heavyweight in the field joining us, Mr. Johan Lottering. Johan's a former SACAA insider who was part of the team doing DFE oversights and renewals. He's also managed and vetted the SACAA exam database. Now from the private sector, he's taken up a mission close to his heart, reforming the systems that keep general aviation safe and strong. He's an author, a thinker, and a relentless advocate for change, and he's here to share what's fueled his journey from the pages of his books to the bold ideas he's fighting for. Johan, it's an honor to have you on the Bryan Air podcast. Welcome to the show.
Likewise, a privilege to be here. Thank you, Brian and Ryan.
Yeah, this has been in the works for a while, and like anything in life, runs away from you. But it's an ideal time to get you on, Johan. There's a lot happening in South African aviation at the moment. You can turn on the news, go across to Fly Africa or your magazine, and see there's a whole whack of things going on, and it's not all positive. And change in many ways is required at this stage, and you're a big advocate for it, at least change for the good. But Johan, as mentioned, you've worn many hats in aviation, from being part of the team doing those DFE oversights and renewals, and you're now looking for systemic change in the private sector. Can I ask you, what's the one moment in your career that lit the fire for you to tackle these big forms, and today particularly in general aviation?
Yeah. Well, that dates back many years to 1993. January, one morning I walked, I was at an accident scene after Hawk XP2, a Cessna 4-seat aircraft that crashed there. The pilot had taken the aircraft on a low-level flight, and they wanted to wash in inverted commas, they wanted to wash the plane before a club meeting, and they ran into an obscure ESCOM high tension wire, and the short of the long is all four were killed. We had a one-stop aviation shop there at Vonderboom. We did training for our clients. We did sales, charter, and insurance. And lo and behold, rental, which was a horrific thing to do. But the reality of aviation struck me, the real risk. When I walked there that morning, you know, it was still misty in the maze, and it gripped my it gripped my soul, you know. And that's where it was born, this sense of that we need to get involved. We need to do something. Every one of us has a collective responsibility to avoid accidents. And of course, as they say, the regulations are written in blood. We need to learn from it. So yeah, that goes back many years. I can carry on and on and on, but one thing led to another. Eventually, in 1998, there was another very horrible event, and I take cognizance of the fact that aviators want to be positive, and they also don't want to be scared. They don't scare easily, or not enough. But sometimes we got to talk about these things, and I wanted to get inside their heads, because I used to be instructor. So when I sold a plane, I would go with him to a farm or a buyer, and not only sign him out, but make sure he's safe. So we built relationships, and that's the very nature of aviation today. We actually a brotherhood and a sisterhood. We're a family, and the people care about each other. I mean, you look at the comments on what happened at Middelburg last week. These guys are pals for life, man, and they know one another. They're so affected if something happens, So what really concerns me is the disconnect between the leadership of aviation in regulatory format, and what happens on the ground. So that's the kind of thing that drives me to campaign for reforms, and through my magazine explain my viewpoints and reflect the viewpoints of the people who read it. And those people are among the most highly respected individuals, the designated flight examiners. They have their say, and I don't know how we're going to get the authorities to interact with us and listen to what we have to say, allow us to be part of this transformation, as you say, which is necessary. This transformation is necessary, but there's no better place to start than in training, and let the regulations adapt to that. So that's basically what drives me in life.
Johan, how do you even start with coming up with that change? Obviously, you got the idea, and there is this disconnect that you spoke about, and you've got your magazine, which is wonderful, by the way. And I was reading the article last night that Laurie Graham had written on there. I said to Ryan this morning, we've got to get Laurie on the show sometime as well. How do you go about implementing that change? Is it support that you need from the private sector first, that you can then try and use to influence what's going on at our regulator, or are there specific channels that you recommend? How can people get behind this?
Well, it's a wonderful question. The thing is for the industry to organize itself. We can tell the story as magazines collectively, and I must tip my hat to the other magazines in South Africa. I mean, these guys, like Athol France and the late Tom Chalmers and Mike de Villiers, those guys, they're icons, and not forgetting Guy Leach. Sorry, Guy. And they also know what's going on grassroots levels, and we're sitting ready as one component to tell the story, to make what is happening transparent, to get the debate going, and even guys like yourselves serve a very specific purpose and play a very important role. So I always think of approaching this battle for change, or the struggle for change, as a trident, a three-pronged fork. you could maybe say a hay fork, where the stem is you get the industry united. You get the guys to talk with one voice. Now, you can do so through your organizations like CASA and the Aero Club and the various organizations. So that's the one thing, to persuade the guys to unite, talk with one voice. Because right now we're talking in 10,000 different voices. We're on all these social forums, and nobody takes note. It's faddist. So that's the stem, and then the center prong is to engage with the CAA, to engage with AT&S and OXA and these industry representative bodies, and talk with them in a meaningful way, but make them transparent and make them accountable by shining the light of publicity on them. You know, you can't disregard what's being said. If the limelight is on you, your bosses are seeing you, the industry is seeing you. That's where the media comes in. And then the third prong is engage in a legal quick campaign. So if you talk to these guys and they want to sweep any aspect under the rug, you get legal representation, and you put them on terms. But for reform, you've got to have that holistic approach.
And Johan, throughout your career, you've obviously seen aviation from both the regulatory and the private sides. What's the one disconnect you keep running into that you think is holding general aviation back from, being as safe and as effective as it could be?
Well, I think that in governmental circles, we have bureaucrats. Now, I don't want to run climb on the affirmative action and black economic empowerment bandwagon, but all over the world, if you want change, you could have the best exponents in a particular industry or field leading you. So you can't just have somebody in an appointed position simply because of political connection or legislative preferences based on nothing but bias and discrimination. You've got to have the best people there, and that's the guy with the best technical skills. So you can't put him or her in a subordinate position. That's basically how I see it.
Johan,
there's so much more to be said.
You say the role like Ryan and myself play in the industry. We've sort of make no bones about it. We don't pretend to be the heavyweight professionals, and a lot of what we do is commenting on what we see, and obviously we're doing it from a place of a bit of experience. We come from an airline background, and what we see on a daily basis are these highly professional people like yourself, and obviously being in the training environment, we're dealing with DFEs and the regulator a lot as well, but these very competent people that you look at them and you say, it's such a shame that you are not able to give back to the industry, but rather are so regulated yourself that the industry is kind of staying stagnant. And you don't have to go too far away from the Springbok rugby team to emphasize the point. If you have the right people in the right positions, then the transformation takes care of itself. The days when we had quota systems in Springbok rugby, it never worked. Rassie came in, with the right person, the right attitude, and put the right people around him. Today, we don't even talk about quota system in the Springbok rugby team. Every single player is there on merit. And there's no reason why it cannot work that way in aviation. But we need the people like Johan, these Andre Duplessis, who we're with all the time. Got Rolly Jones, all these wonderful people that got so much knowledge and that can add value.
It is something that, unfortunately, I think South Africans, we default to falling victim to, is we have this desire to want to speak out in one big voice and get things going and drive change and whatever, but we allow this interference from the what's the right word for it, the wrong levels of
Power.
Yeah, I was going to say intelligence, but steamroll things like it.
Yeah.
And I get what Johan is saying. There needs to be a
direction,
the volume turned up on this, and a real push for safety ultimately.
Yeah, because that's what it's all about. I mean, Johan's saying, what started his sort of lit that fire, and it was an accident. What better way to say, well, something needs to be done. Well, let's hope by the end of the conversation we can maybe assist with, pushing that same direction. And I think it's important, as long as, yourself, the other magazines that you mentioned, ourselves, Fly Africa, and everyone is pushing in that same direction, then maybe we can get something done. And obviously, for the likes of us, I mean, we always say here in the training environment, if our job is ultimately to make aviation safer, that is it. And if we can now have the podcast as well that is aiming in that same direction, well, that would just be the cherry on the top.
Absolutely.
And that, to me, the best part, Ryan, about this podcast has always been the doors opening to speak to someone like Johan about these things that basically shares the same values. Right, let's just change gears a little bit there, Johan. I want to talk about your books for a moment, because you are an author. And I want to hear about how your experiences compelled you to put pen to paper and share it with the world. And I know you've written some complex books, but you've also written some children's books, which Ryan and myself find rather awesome, because we both got 2 small kids, and I think that's such a fantastic idea. And Ryan will vouch for me on this. It is very difficult to find nice children's books that you want to sit down and read to your kids. So an aviation one, that's about as good as it gets for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that comes from being a grandpa. I've got these wonderful grandchildren. My sons married late in their lives. Although they've been married for many years, and we waited quite a while for the grandkids, but they arrived at the exact right moment as far as we are concerned. And what we're doing is also part of our legacy. And children learn by listening to stories. You can't put them in a classroom and expect they'll keep concentrating, and they learn at their own pace. And they get bored easily. My wife Cecile, who worked with me for 23 years in the aviation business and knows its insides sometimes better than I do, she actually came forward with this idea, and it's of creating a children's adventure. So we've got a whole plot there where Grandpa comes, and obviously they say you invariably feature in your own book. So the role of Grandpa is actually as the narrator, and he prepares the kids for the forced landing and their survival experience. So what I wanted to accomplish was an interest in aviation, first of all, and to understand certain concepts about, things like planning for high density altitude, fuel weights, and these things, and how to think and plan ahead. It's not necessarily a holistic or it's to stimulate thinking, to show them how to make fire, how to clean water, how to find direction in the bush, how to make a plan, then follow your plan, how to set strategic objectives and stick to it in the form of a story and a conversation. And we've got some humor in there. It's a major element in it. And then obviously the crooks get caught in the end. and we use a boss book, which is a rarity, and a 172. And then how you have a food attack, attacking the crooks in the end, but it all ends well. So that's really what we wanted to accomplish. And in a South African context as well. So sell our continent and our subcontinent as a tourist destination, and sell flying as an adventure and a romance to the younger generation. That's really what I wanted to do.
That's awesome. We're going to give away 2 of Johan's books on the show.
Yeah.
So probably early next week on the pod we'll give away a couple of books. But if someone wants to go and buy Johan, what's the easiest way for our listeners to get hold of?
Yeah. Well, I think at this stage, the only copies that are left of the current run is at the Pilots and Planes shop at Vonderboom Airport.
Yep.
So sorry for the free commercial there, but I'm sure Jannie Litties won't mind. Thanks for that.
Yeah. No, it's be well worth it. And aviation worldwide, we've seen it. We're having a conversation the other day about how small it is worldwide. I mean, we've crossed paths with people that when we were training in Morlaix, that when we're working at SA Express, that we are now working together with on a totally separate project in South Africa.
Yeah.
And it's so minute. And if you look at South African aviation, I mean, it's minuscule in the big scheme of things. So when someone is doing something, it's good to put a bit of weight and support behind. And writing a book is no small feat.
No.
Believe, people often say, you see on LinkedIn, everyone's writing a book these days,
Yeah.
but it's not easy. And it takes a lot of courage in that to get it out. And with something like that comes from the sort of the right part of your soul, we need to get behind these things and support.
What I really love about that is, like you say, what really inspired you, and the fact that you said from being a grandpa. I think it really comes from the right place as well. We both know from being dads of young children, that's where a lot of your motivation and your fuel comes from. And I really love that aspect. It's really cool. And to make aviation relatable stories for kiddies.
Yeah,
I know my kiddies love that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So we'll get a couple for ourselves as well. No, that's awesome. Awesome, man. Yeah, don't stop what you're doing on the author. Maybe there's a few other books in you that still need to come out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it takes about that little book took 2 years. My other book, I don't want to capitalize too much on this opportunity, but the first book took 4 years. I thought it was going to take me like 4 months, and the other one took 2 years. So it's
it's a lot of work.
Johan, we've noticed that one of your missions, for lack of a better word, is to highlight ideas like making a DFE status, a rating on a license. Yes. To solve like staffing and qualification issues, because we know that that's one of the areas in aviation at the moment that we're lacking. What's the one reform you'd fight tooth and nail for to leave aviation safer as your legacy in terms of driving that point across?
Thank you really for that question. Basically, I'd like the industry, the DFEs, to be empowered to do their own oversight, to basically look at options like that is standard international practice in other countries where you have flight examiners. In other countries, they call it a DPE, designated pilot examiner. You must have a requirement for that individual to be, first of all, have an equal rating, not just an equivalent rating. Because so for you to be an authorized officer, you need to have a grade 1 instructor's rating, because that's the first requirement for being a designated flight examiner, to even apply for that status. And you have overseeing officers that have only commercial licenses. I mean, it's like school children vetting their departmental heads and the principal of the school. It's just unheard of internationally. It's morally wrong, and it's also a legal anomaly. If you really look at ICAO Doc 8335, the sub-articles, 6.2, go read that 6.21 and 6.24. I don't know how we passed our FAA and ICAO audit with those anomalies. I'm really astonished. But that apart, is the you can't have 4 or 5 or even 10 authorized officers overseeing this volume. I mean, there are 211 when I last checked designated flight examiners. And these individuals are the cream of the crop, and they need valid feedback on a technical side. You guys now, you as airline pilots, I mean, you climb out of a simulator today before doing your line check or your line induction training, and immediately if you don't continue that training, you start regressing in terms of proficiency. So the guys who oversee their peers must be current. They must be current on type. So they've got to be type-rated examiners, and they need to come from the industry. You can have the CAA to do quality checks on the basis of following the processes, due process, and all that. But this belongs with the industry. So I'd say make it a rating and write what is required in terms of testing and renewals. And let the CAA sit in on an ad hoc basis, so you don't have a free-for-all, but let the people who know this business do the business. And all this unhappiness. One guy, if I mention, try to identify him, everybody will know who he is, but I don't want to take that liberty. I was on a funeral service of the late General Des Barker and Colonel Rama Aya there at the SAF Memorial. And because of this bald head, I went to stand under the cypress tree there, and somebody joined me there who landed on, now I'm going to give him away, who'd landed on a moving vehicle and that. But yes, and he said to me, I've got 200 hours to go at that stage, and then I'll hit the 30,000 hour mark. I've got so much to offer this industry. But I simply won't subject myself to the current way of testing.
Yeah.
Now I couldn't get a bigger voice for that. And since I've started doing oversights, people recognized me from the days that we were involved with the Aviation Action Forum, and at one stage as leader of IHOPA in 2007. You know, they sort of picked at me still on that side of the fence, and they started complaining to me, you know, and I started listening. And where I'm sitting here now, I know it's both a safety concern, and it's affecting the validity of all South African licenses, right down to the PPL level.
Yeah.
I mean, if your designated flight examiners now aren't properly assessed in terms of these requirements, it by implication or constructively affects every license beneath that. And the kind of objection being raised is, but we can't trust these guys to test themselves. Now, that is the biggest anomaly there'll ever be, because nobody is more concerned about the state of the industry than these individuals. They're the cream of the crop. They set the pace. They up to date with the latest developments.
Yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying, but there's no bigger motivation than for the people out there. And what Johan is saying, your license needs to hold value. There's a huge amount of money that goes into getting a license, a huge amount of sacrifice. And if it's becoming less and less valuable every year, then that's a problem. Then we have to do something about it.
Yeah,
that's a major thing. Obviously, you and I are involved on the training side. We know how difficult it is, first of all, to find DFEs in the first place. You know, you need a DFE to do a IF renewal or whatever. Not huge amount of them about. And because it's so difficult, these oversights and it's not very clear as well. Whenever you speak to someone, you know, it's sort of not quite sure of the path that they need to take to get there. So what happens? You get some very, very smart youngsters that decide, no, they're not going to go down that path. And then the industry loses out on those people. What's even worse, going back to my previous point with your license, we had a show, must be going on a couple of years now, where we were chatting to Kevin Brown and his team about the EASA exams. So today you've got youngsters that are going to be doing their pilot license, but they're saying, well, why must I get a South African ATPL anyway? I might as well just start from the beginning and go and get my EASA license and then be on my way, which is not good, because then the industry loses out big time.
I also think where the industry is losing out on this is, like Johan quite rightly said, you've got individuals out there with vast amounts of experience that would have so much to be able to give back to the industry, and they're deterred by the fact that the current way of obtaining that status it's just, you know, something that they're not prepared to put themselves through. So the industry loses at the end, which is quite sad.
Can I come in here uninvited?
No, go, Jan.
All right. You know, you've got to look at the state of the industry. Sorry.
No problem.
Okay. In the sense of at systemic shortcomings. You know, there's one particular accident. There's a girl that at Vonderboom who lost her life tragically, and I was so distraught by that accident. But if you really go to the root causes, not only the contributing factors, at Vonderboom Airport there are, and I believe so at Rand Airport as well, there are 18 aviation training organizations, 4 in helicopters, and the rest in fixed wing. the number of movements at that airport is just intolerable. It's like I thought it was like between 5,000 and 8,000 movements in a month, and my investigations have shown closer to 12,000. That's a lot of money, but that's half of the time spent on the ground waiting for a slot. These kids don't know what a normal circuit looks like anymore. So it's just very, very worrisome. And then, so I don't know how the Air Services Licensing Council sees how they justify issuing 18 licenses at one single airport. And the ripple effect is so wide. You know, and yeah, we can talk on that particular accident for weeks and hours. But basically, I went and I checked the curriculum and the regulations. You know what's been taken out that used to be standard practice in the old days is practicing a stall in a descending turn. You know, if you take a Cherokee with dihedral, for the other listeners, the upsweep of the low wings for stability. You know, the lateral upswing during the descending turn, the lower wing has a higher angle of attack than the outside wing, and therefore a greater propensity to stall. And once this stall happens, you have an automatic auto-rotation to the left, to the inside wing. And once that auto-rotation happens, the outside wing becomes unstalled. So it contributes. So to have an upside-down Cherokee at 600 meters above the ground, I don't think the best pilot can recover from that. But now you go look in the AIC, I can't find it anymore. It's not there. Practicing stalls on a descending turn. I'm very, very concerned. We actually need a commission to look into these things and to make it right, because we have become an international destination because of the good weather, because of the good training setups, and because of the currency, and we're going to become that increasingly so. So we have a very big responsibility to start with this introspective processes sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Yeah, you've flown out of
Vonnegut
recently, and it's some horror stories there from.
It's a busy little airport.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, they've got their fair set of challenges. Like you say, there's a tremendous amount of flying schools with a lot of activity. They've got a lot of ATNS air traffic challenges as well, and not a lot of place as well surrounding the airfield to put an airplane down if you do have an engine failure. So
that's always a scary part for me.
Built up around these airfields. Oh.
And then you look, how much of your training then is actually on the flying when you're actually looking, you're basically trying to not hit something else. That's the most scary part.
Well, that you hit the nail on the head there. It's like with the general flying area itself as well, just becoming so overpopulated. The bulk of your training is spent, looking out for other traffic that's a potential threat. Bar alone, just focusing on the actual flying.
Yeah, and is there a risk? I mean, General Aviation itself, you see what's going on there in Durban, Virginia Airport, close to my heart. That was sort of one of the first places. I went, and one of the places that you could walk onto the runway if you wanted to. Everything is there and freely available, and they've had their challenges over the years. I did my instructor rating a few years ago now, and here in Johannesburg, and it was quite difficult from someone coming from an airline background. As Ryan said, you got to pick one of these schools, and it's quite limited into what you can actually do from a training perspective, because there's not that many. You got these sort of you can go there towards Hearties, or you can, but you stuck. You don't have nice instrument approaches to fly at airports because they're too busy, and the instrument approaches these days don't even exist because ATNS haven't done their job. So it's just this like Swiss cheese effect that is lining up. But yeah, if we don't do something about it, I feel you could lose general aviation entirely. Is not good. And then obviously going back to using people in the industry that have the knowledge and the skills and all this stuff to pass down on the younger generation. Someone like Mark Goff, the only way you can like pass that stuff on is to do what Mark did and go start a massive flight school. But not everyone can go and do that. Johan, what are we going to do about it? What do you want us to do? How can we push it? How can we get people sort of focused in the right direction here?
Well, first of all, the kind of thing that you are doing is creating awareness, and it's bringing a collective intelligence to the table. So or a corporate intelligence. I just don't know where to start. I was campaigning, and I've written articles about it, that first of all, when you have a student solo in the circuit, we could have some form of legislation or AIC or guidelines of that classifies that circuit as a solo circuit. You shouldn't be expecting a student to expand or extend or to orbit, because they're already overwhelmed with a variety of tasks and influences. They still like babies, and because of what Ryan has just mentioned now, these students might have 30 hours in their logbook, but they've got 15 hours on the ground waiting for other traffic, or being distracted during exercises, looking out for other aircraft. Now you have SACAA 61027, the termination of training after 30 hours, not going solo. But it's the rationale is incorrect. The rationale is aimed at avoiding exploitation of students. But now they put it under the banner of aptitude, and that it's not that kid's fault. And then we got a lot of thinking to do ourselves as instructors in that. A young student in the initial phases, the CFI should actually fly with that student to determine his or her pace of training and for the first 5 hours. But we've got it all wrong. We give it to the most junior instructor and only do these checks and balances when it's already too late. So bring these. We need these workshops for instructors to talk one-on-one to each other, or in a collective atmosphere, benefit from people like Scully Levine and those guys who really understand the soul of training, So there's so much more that can be done, but should be done, and the urgency is very high, and we need to do it to save lives, because you can't wait for another 2 accidents before we pick up on a tendency or some kind of pattern, and then wait for the proposed rulemaking to be announced and discussed on CARCOM. I don't know if you've ever attended a CARCOM meeting or Industry Liaison Forum meeting. You've got like 3 guys dominating the conversation, and the rest are listening. And then you've got like 140, 150 tuned in on this thing. And now I'm going to take another gap. and that's I have been campaigning for accident avoidance training to be made compulsory, because there's nothing in the curriculums that prepare you for recognizing the development of an accident and the circumstantial and contributing factors. And if you don't make it compulsory, it's just going to be another tick box exercise. You go to these safety meetings. I mean, the guys arrange it with the best of heart, but it becomes like a chat shop.
Yeah.
And attended by those already converted. It never reaches the 5,600 students per year that we bring into this country.
Yeah, I think some of those meetings turn into more of a good excuse for a free pizza and a beer instead of actually, nailing the actual objective.
Yeah.
And then they how can you make a guy safer by making him watch an upside down display or and I'm not trying to put down the people that do these displays. I mean, they do it with the best intentions, but we have a saying in Afrikaans, woorde wek, voorbeelde trek. So it means you can tell me whatever you want to, but if I give you an extreme flying display, let's say I'll show you how to fly upside down under a bridge, you're going to try and imitate that.
Yeah. Hearing you speak there as well, it brings something else to mind that I notice, particularly in South Africa. It's a South African thing for me. It does happen around the world, but more so here. You've got a lot of these events. You've spoken about the safety ones and that, but you've also got these big summits that happen. I went to one last year at Sandton City, massive. I mean, big event, big venue, awesome lunch, talks by industry leaders up the wazoo. Everyone is there. I mean, Roger Foster was there. All the heavies were there. Not one pilot. There was not one. I wasn't there as a pilot. I was there representing, the company. I wasn't there as a pilot. There were no pilots there talking about the industry, what's going on, what it means to be a pilot. So there's this pilots for me don't hold the weight that they should. And then maybe that plays into a little bit what you're speaking about now with the DFEs. I mean, DFEs cream of the crop when it comes to knowing your stuff, being up to date with the latest developments in the industry, locally and abroad, best training practices. There's not enough weight given to that. And if this industry is going to grow and it's going to be, I think they asked me the question. I was sitting on a panel and the guy asked the question, what would you, if you had a golden wish, what would you want? And my answer probably didn't relate to a lot of people that were there, because like I say, no pilots were there. But I would like just that sort of undeniable, I'm going to become a pilot, and I'm going to have an awesome career being a pilot. To me, that's fallen away a little bit. There's almost a question asked, do you think that's a good choice in the current environment that we're in? Is that something you really want to do? Whereas in the past, I feel like if you want to do that, go and do it. It'll be the best career you've ever had. And I know there's external things, what's going on in the industry, pilots working hard and things like that. But I just think that, if you are a higher ranked pilot, we had Ian Finley here yesterday doing some work with us, and to be in the presence of a guy like that who's actually got a hell of a lot of knowledge, and he can actually do wonders for everyone in the industry. Just let's give those guys like yourself as well, Johan, a bit of weight, a bit of kudos, and put them up on a pedestal, because no one else is. Yeah. So Well, Johan, it's been fantastic having you on the show. I don't think it's the last time you'll be on the show with us. I'd like to get you on again. For listeners out there that want to follow this and follow your campaigning and at least follow you personally, I know I'll follow you on LinkedIn. What's the best place for people to see your stuff and get your magazine and all the rest?
Well, thank you for that opportunity. There's obviously our website's the best way is www.iaamag.coza. Thank you for that.
Well, we'll do that, and we'll leave that link in the show notes. That was fantastic, Paul. Thanks for being here with me, and
James, thanks very much. Johan, wonderful to actually have this conversation with you. Thank you for taking the time and joining us today and sharing your insights. I think it was a high value conversation, and we look forward to further engagement.
Yeah, and 220 episodes of the Bryan Air podcast. So you 220, Johan, and we'll get you on again soon.
Wow!
Thanks for joining us.
What a privilege. Thank you for having me.
Have a good day, everyone. And from our side, goodbye for now. Ciao.